Hello there, welcome back to the channel. Thanks for joining me today. Here we are in our first ever tutorial. This is just something that I fancied doing because I've been asked before about how I do some of my builds and how I come up with ideas and things like that. So I thought I would share a little bit of my building experience and knowledge with you, and I thought I would start today by talking about flower beds. Now, for anyone who's not a regular visitor to my channel, you may not know that I am a gardener in real life. So I know a fair bit about garden design and designing flower beds and the do's and the don'ts. Well, I like to think I know a fair bit about it anyway. I mean, talk to my clients, they're the ones that really know whether I'm any good or not. So I've set up a few little things along here just to try and demonstrate what I do when I design a flower bed within Planet Zoo. Because there's a lot of good foliage in Planet Zoo. There's not as much as I would like, but there is some very good stuff in here, and you can do quite a lot with it. And yeah, so I just thought I would just share some basic ideas with you. So it's not going to be a long video. It's just some basics of you know, flower border design. So let's get started over here with the edging. Now, the first thing to note is that generally when I do a flower bed in the game, I do put the soil down underneath. You don't have to do that. You can just do terrain. You can do it straight on the grass. You can put soil down. You know, you can just do it like that. But if you want it to be a bit more realistic, put these bits of soil down because it just lifts it up. It makes it just look a bit more real. The first thing you need to decide is, are you going to have an edging or not? There are lots of different types of edging you can do. And this is a very important thing in real life as well. One of my biggest things whenever I start working in a new garden, the first thing I do is go around and sort out any sort of edging around flower borders, especially where it meets grass, because you don't want the two things to sort of blend together really. Most flower borders that I design, I have quite sharp edges to the lawn, and then a kind of a 3 or 4 inch gap before the soil actually really starts, and it makes it look incredibly smart. However, you can't do that in the game, so you have to come up with other ideas. So here are just a few ideas that I have, and I apologize if this is very basic stuff. I'm doing this tutorial for beginners or for experienced people, so I'm kind of trying to cover everything that could be thought about with regards to designing a flower border. So the first basic idea I've put down is just using flowers as the edging, which is probably the most common thing that you see in real life, where you can still see bits of the soil through the flower all along the edge, which is good. And obviously you don't have to use one type of flower in a line like this. It can be various different flowers. Then you've got a nice sort of solid wooden a log edging. That's something you see a lot in real life, particularly good in a woodland environment. So if you're using ferns, for example, they can look really nice with a nice natural log edging. The topiary hedging is very good. So I've done 2 types here, and I'll tell you why. This one obviously looks really nice as a hedge, sorry, but not necessarily very practical as an edge to a flower border, mainly because it means that you can't see any low down flowers. You need tall flowers in there, which is absolutely fine, and obviously it would work well for a shrubbery, which is something that I'll probably go into in a separate video. But yes, it sort of means that you're limited on what flowers you can use within the border if you use the full-sized hedging. However, what you can do, and what you often see in real life, is low-cut box hedging. So as you can see, this is as simple as just sinking this stuff into the ground, and so it looks like it's not got the stems at the bottom. And that will make the same sort of effect, but it's lower down so you can still see the nice low down plants. Moving on, we have this lovely, this is the Faux Rock. It's a shame that you don't get this stuff for all of these preset types of rock. You can recolor this, but they're not as detailed, unfortunately, as this stuff, because obviously they're meant to look fake, whereas this stuff is meant to look real. But you can still use these, and they do make an effective edging. Excuse me. And they can look really good, especially in real life, actually, having a rock edging, because if you put the right plants around the edge, the plants will kind of grow out on top of them and creep around them. If you get nice low spreading plants, it can look really nice, actually, having them just growing over the rocks around the edge of a border. Then you have the sort of the more extreme rock edging. So this is just a few examples of this particular type of rock. Just play around with them. And again, that can look really nice once you've got some nice bushy plants around the edge there. But of course, none of these hedges, or apart from edges, other than the hedge here, really stop people potentially walking onto your flower bed. So if you want something a bit more as a barrier as well as an edge, you can go with some of these see-through fences. So this is an in-game fence, but you could still have the low-down plants in a flower bed surrounded by this, because you can still see them through it, which is helpful, but obviously it also acts as a barrier to stop people walking across your flower bed. And then this is just a simple custom one that I've made with fence posts. There are so many different ways you can make your own custom fencing, but yeah, I just thought I'd show you just one way there, which again, it's a nice, good, solid looking fence, and you could still see any sort of flower design that you have behind it as well. So there's just a few thoughts on different types of edging for your borders. So let's move on now. So there are a couple of different types of borders. The first I want to look at is where you've got some sort of barrier at the back, so whether it's a brick wall or the edge of a habitat barrier or whatever it is here, and you have a border, just a flat border just running along the front of it. This is a very common thing in real life, obviously, where you have flower borders up against either border walls or house, up against the side of a house. And it can be a tricky one to actually design this sort of look. Obviously, in real life, you have to consider how much sun it gets. You also have to consider drainage and soil type. Often being right next to a brick wall, the ground can get very wet along here because all the rainwater hits the wall and runs straight down, and so you can end up with it being quite boggy particularly along the back of the border. Now obviously in the game you don't have to worry about stuff like that, so you can just design it to look good. So this is my back wall project, and this is how not to do it. So what I've done in here, you might look at that and think, oh, that's a lovely looking flower border. However, if I saw this in real life, I would cry a little bit because it's just too busy. There's not so much that it's too full up, but there are too many different types of plants, and this is the big thing. This is sort of plant design 101. A flower border does not need 20 different plants in it. It needs 3, 4, maybe 5 plants. And that's excluding shrubs and what we call dot plants, which I will explain in a minute. So a border like this, all I did to build this one, I just went through the list in your nature thing here. I just went down to gardening and I went through all of the different plants here, and I just plonked one of each in, just to show you all the different types of plants that you can put into a border and how messy it looks. So that isn't how not to do it. And now I've got an empty one here, and I will attempt to show you how to do it a little bit better. So what you want to do, like I say, you want to try and minimize your different types of flower, and you also want to make sure you make the most out of the different sizes. So I love this one, so that's definitely going to go in. This is a nice one, but it's a very similar color, so I might skip that for this border because I've only got a small border here. This is quite a nice plant, but it's quite tall, so it can be an awkward one because it can end up being a little bit too in your face. But let's put that down. Yeah, I'm quite a fan of this one because it is quite a unique colour within this game. So let's go with some of that as well. I could do with something white. What have we got here? That's quite a nice sort of spready one. So let's have a look at that as well. Obviously, I'm not necessarily going to use all of these. This is how I always design a border, is just pick out a few things first, lay them out on the ground. I do this when I'm doing building work and stuff as well. Just kind of, yeah, that's quite a nice one as well. So there we go. So make your selection first, so you know what you've got to play around with. See, I think that's a good selection there. We've got some nice different colours of foliage as well as plants. There's one that may come in at some point, which is this lovely yellow golden rod. So I'll discuss that one with you in a minute. In fact, you know what I might do? I might use this one. Let's see. Okay, so first off, obviously in this case I'm having a natural edging. So what I'm going to do, let's I should have grouped all of that lot together, shouldn't I? So I want that and them. Let's group them all together so it's easy to use them all. Here we go. Right, so let's start with one of these. Now the good thing is about this is you have to remember you can always move stuff. So it doesn't matter if you get things wrong, you can just keep on doing it until you get it right. Now remember, one of the most important things you can do when you're starting this sort of thing is rotation. In fact, I'm just going to get rid of the angle snap because I don't need that. Rotation is your friend in this game. You can rotate a plant and it looks completely different, so just remember that. Now what you also don't want to do, you don't ever go for symmetry if you're just designing a single flower border. Obviously in very big posh houses they often have symmetrical borders sort of either side of a pathway, for example, but within a border itself you very rarely see symmetry because nature doesn't do things symmetrically. Nature also doesn't do things in straight lines, so don't use straight lines. So for example, I wouldn't do that because that just looks too fake. You want to try and make it look natural. Now obviously if you want to do symmetrical, then that's relatively easy. You don't need me to tell you how to make things symmetrical. So yeah, but that's not what I'm going for here. I'm talking about doing things and making it trying to make it look as natural as possible. So again, rotate, vary up the size. Remember that you can clump two together like that to make it look like a different shaped version of the same plant. Then we have the little one. Maybe I'll get sort of one of them dotted here and then maybe a couple back here. Yeah, okay. Now let's have a look at let's go with the red one. See, I think some of that may be in this back corner, and then maybe maybe at the front. I have to consider the edge and how far to the edge I will want to go. Let's get some of the little one in here. Maybe just get a couple of them hugging in there. And then maybe one of the medium sizes as well, just back here. There we go, that's good for now. Let's move on to this one. See, now what I want to do with this one straight away, I want to make that one look so it's a bit of an odd shape. I don't want it looking like it's just a big round shape, because it can be very easy, because obviously all of these are basically the same size. It can be very easy to just plonk them in and leave them as they are, and that's no good because you end up with it looking a bit too fake. Here we go, let's get that one in there. And don't be scared to leave soil as well. This is something that's very important in garden design. There's nothing wrong with having bare soil in a flower bed. It can actually look a lot better if you have some bare soil showing, because it can look too messy if you don't. Actually, if you don't have that bare soil showing, it can look a bit too busy, and you can't really separate out the plants visually. You can't separate out the plants from each other. So don't, like you might immediately think, right, let's squash this one right into here. Well, no, why not bring it forwards? Why not bring it out there and have it hanging over the front of the border a little bit like that? There's nothing wrong with that at all. So I might leave a few gaps. I've still got a bit of a gap here. Do you know what? I might get another one of these little pink ones, I think, in here. Maybe a couple of those actually in here. And maybe even one just over here. Yeah, there we go. Right, we're getting there, aren't we? I think this is looking okay. And again, try not to use the same number of each plant. So like this red one, I've got two big ones, a medium and a couple of smalls. So this and this one, what is this one? I can't remember. The twin flower, all I've got is a big one and a medium. So don't feel the need to go, oh, I've not got any of the small twin flowers, so I'll make sure I put a couple of those down. You don't have to. You can do, but you don't have to. Okay, now that's a good start. I feel like I've done an okay job there. So you can see we only got 4 types. I've not put any of this one in, and actually I don't think I'm going to, because I want to use the space a bit differently. So something that we use in real life, we call them dot plants, D-O-T, dot plants. And what that is where you've got a flower border like this, where everything is relatively close to the ground. What you might want is something that's tall, something to just grab your eye, grab your attention. And what it does, it grabs your eye in, and then it brings attention to all the things around it. So let's go back into our nature, and let's have a look at, let's go with grasses first. Grass is something I use a lot in my flower borders. Now obviously grasses technically don't flower. They're not particularly colourful necessarily. But what they do offer you is structure and height, and structure is very important in any garden. I mean, these grasses, obviously this is a bulrush, so you might not find that in most flower borders, but you can grow these obviously in the ground. You don't have to have them in water. These are known as water plants, and yes, they do like to be wet, but you can certainly grow them in a flower border. And you can immediately see they just bring in height, structure, and it's just something a bit different. And when I'm designing a border, I very rarely put any border together without at least one grass in it of some sort. Now we're quite limited in this game. There aren't many different grasses. I think there are, yeah, they've got the elephant grass as well. This is a really nice grass, but actually it's a bit too green in this case. I would want something a little bit more sort of colourful, something that has something on it. I think those 3 are the main ones. We have got some of these other little grasses, but these are too small. This wouldn't be a dot plant because it's not tall enough, so it doesn't grab the eye. It's a perfectly nice plant, but it's not what I want in this border. There's also, like I said earlier, this golden rod. See, that is almost a dot plant, but I'll be honest, again, this particular one is not tall enough. Now in real life I do use goldenrod as dot plants because they grow a lot taller than this one is in the game. Now I think in the game I'm basically down to 2 types of grass, not that one. I've got the common reeds and the cattail, which is known as a bulrush. Now I think I'm going to use both of these. And I have gone for the thin types. Obviously you've got bigger clumps as well, which you could use in a bigger border, but in a border like this you would want a nice dot plant. Now the difference between this one and this one that I will show you over here in the corner, there's two things that you would do. One, in a border like this, if you want a dot plant, often with a dot plant you would have it stuck right out in the middle like this. If you had a big round border, for example, you might put it right in the middle. However, because you've got a wall at the back, what you don't want is a load of tall plants at the front like that. That looks terrible because you don't see past the tall plants to see all the nice stuff behind it. Obviously in real life they would cause too much shade for the plants at the back as well, and so nothing would thrive, nothing would look good. It's just a bad idea. So don't put tall plants at the front of a border when you have an obvious back to the border like a wall. What you want to do is put the dot plants towards the back, not necessarily right up against the wall, although that is an option, but you would want them, in this case I would probably put one maybe just here, I think, and then let's have a look at getting this one in as well. And again, not symmetrical, so that might be an obvious place to put it, but actually I'd be tempted to bring it more into here. Just to bring a little bit of attention to this area here. Yeah, there we go. That's all it needs. You don't need lots of these dot plants at all. Okay, that's looking a bit better now. Okay, now something else that I like to do is plants. No, so fern. No, that's not the one. Hang on. Palm. Let's go with palm. Right. So not everything in a flower border has to be a flower. certainly doesn't have to be particularly colourful, hence why I've put grasses in as the dot plants. What you can also do are things that just have nice foliage. So something like one of these. Is that? No, that's not quite what I was after. Hang on. No, why am I not finding the right plants? Hang on. Maybe, are they ferns? No, I'm just trying to think of the one that I want. Are they called? They're called elephant ears, aren't they? Yeah, here we go. This is the one that I wanted. What are they classed as? Oh, they're just elephant ears. Okay, I think these are actually part of the palm family. So something like this is a fantastic plant because it's just lovely foliage. No colour, just green. But sometimes green is all you need. Okay, so again, it's just something that's going to just grab the eye. I'm not sure which one I would want in here actually. Potentially, no. I think the big one would actually look a bit better. There we go. Yeah, just in this gap here, I reckon. Here we go. Yeah, that's looking okay, isn't it? You see, so there's no symmetry really, because you've got a nice tall one on the left, you've got a slightly shorter one here, and then a shorter one here, and this one is slightly further forwards in the border as well. Okay, so flower wise, I think we're looking okay there. I don't think we want any more in. Now obviously shrubs are a different matter, and shrubs you could have, if the border was bigger, you could certainly put some shrubs in. Let me just show you actually, there are some small shrubs in the game. Why did that not bring up any shrubs? Oh no, they're not called shrubs, are they? Sorry, they're called bush. Okay, so there are a couple that you could potentially use. So something like this nice little crimson one. See, even that is massive, isn't it? Oh no, there we go. There's the small one. So something like that, if you wanted some shrubs in the border, you could put a couple of these towards the back. So I could plonk one in here. I could maybe get one in the back up here as well. Maybe even a slightly larger one sticking through the wall. You know, you could do that sort of thing. It's an option. But shrubs is a different matter, and I'll probably do a separate tutorial video on how I use shrubs. So let's get rid of those for now. I think this border's probably got enough actual plants in it for now. I think what I would be tempted to do in this border is something with rocks. Now rocks, using these faux rocks, rocks can make quite a big difference to a border. See what you can do here, use these faux ones and sink them in. Now obviously you can colour these as well, so you might want them to be, yeah, maybe a nice natural grey colour, and sink them in. And it's a very subtle thing, but if you just get some of these just scattered throughout, not too many, just a few, just so you can see bits of them just poking through the foliage. You know, raise some up, sink some down, play around with heights a little bit. Maybe just fill in a few of the little gaps where you've got patches of soil. Yeah, there we go. That's looking a bit better, isn't it? And obviously you can make feature out of certain rocks as well. So if you wanted something a bit more spiky in there, let's have a look. Something like this. You could potentially make a feature out of a rock. You know, if you want something in your border that's a bit more in your face, you know, you can easily put rocks like this kind of sticking into it and out the ground like that. Maybe even something a bit larger towards the back. That's a bit too big, but yeah, you know, this sort of thing you can quite easily just get a couple of rocks in there as well. There we go. Right, so let's just get rid of all my spares. See, I'm pretty happy with that border. I think that's looking a bit nicer. Now, obviously, the rocks aren't matching. I could have recolored these rocks, but I'm just using that as a demonstration. So hopefully you can see the difference between that border and that border. That's too busy. There's too many things going on in there. This one is just a little bit simpler. It just looks more real. It's got a couple of extra things in which aren't colourful, but they just draw your eye. And obviously this is quite a small area really. If this was stretched out for longer or round a bend or whatever, you could have a little bit more fun with the dot plants, getting some different types of taller things in. You can even use trees and things. If the border's big enough, you can use shrubs and trees as dot plants, essentially. Especially in this game where you can sink things into the ground. So you can have a, let me just show you, like, again, this is something I'll probably go into more in another video, but something you can do really well in this game, which you can't do in real life, is something like this conifer, which is absolutely massive. There's no way you could have this in this board. It would just look way too big. But what you can do is just sink it right into the ground like that. And hey presto, you've got yourself a mini conifer. And look at that, you could just have a little conifer over the edge there. That's such a simple thing. It's just creating a whole new plant out of an existing plant because you've sunk it into the ground. Very simple to do. Obviously you can't do it in real life, but in the game you can. So take advantage of it. So there we go. So there's my little ideas for how to design a border with a wall at the back. Now if we come around the corner here, I've got a border here which is in a corner. And again, in real life these are really tricky to do because unless they're facing the exact correct direction, they don't get enough sunlight, and again because of the walls and the rain, you're more than likely to have very boggy ground here. Now what you want to do in a border like this, it's very similar to what I've done over here. So let's just get back into here and find our plants. So I'll go with the same basic plants again, I think, because these are some of my favorites. I'll mix it up a bit actually. I'll use this purple one. It's quite a nice plant, this one. And then let's see, let's go for, let's mix it up a little bit. No, I think actually, no, I did use this one, didn't I? It's one of my go-to plants, this one. Here we go. And let's, well, that's a different one. Let's go with that one. So it's quite a pink border, this one, but that's fine. There's nothing wrong with having a colour theme in a border. So again, in this one, you want to use the same techniques essentially. So the difference in this border is going to be your dot plants. So I'm just gonna kind of rush through and get this lot into place. Remember rotation, 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 rotation. Always try and, whoops, didn't mean to do that. Always try to create a new look for your plants. Right, let's get one of these over here. And obviously something else you can do is sink things into walls as well if you want to you know, make use of the fact that you've got a wall there, and sort of hide stuff half within it. That's absolutely fine. There we go. Let's get some of these in here, I think, as well. Maybe up there. There we go. What haven't I used? This one. No, so it's not quite the right plant actually, this one. So let's just see what else we've got. How about this one? Yeah, this is quite a nice plant. Let's try and get a bit of this in here. No, that's going to be too tall for what I have in mind. Let's have a look at this one. Yeah, there we go. This one's a bit different, isn't it? Great. So let's get some of these in here. Let's get you there. Okay, that's good. I just need something in this gap here, I think. Yeah, that's in there, and I think maybe just one of these over on the side here. Just needs a little bit of colour there, maybe even just one in there as well. There we go, that's looking okay. So we've got a nice mix again, only 4 different plants in there, that's all that needs. Just makes it look like it's been done on purpose, like it's not too messy. Okay, so now what you want to do with this one is the dot plants. Let me get rid of these. So it's the same idea with the dot plants. However, because it's a corner wall, you want to draw attention into the back corner essentially. So you want low plants at the front, and then you want them building up to high at the back. So in this case, what you might want to do is put something right up against that back wall in the corner, and you might want to go for something like this, the lobster plant. See, this is a lovely looking thing. Is it tall enough? Probably not. How about this one? Yeah, here we go. Look at that. That's a great looking plant to have in the back corner. However, if that is in that back corner there, and that does look great, it is hiding this plant. So you might just want to move that. Maybe just get it somewhere else, or just get rid of it entirely. No, I think I do want it there. Let's keep it back there actually. But just, yeah, it can be hidden a little bit, but you can see it a bit better just on that side there. Right, so that plant there, I might even just want to move that a little bit more. Don't be too scared of having it going inside the wall a little bit. It's not too big a problem if the odd little tip of a leaf disappears into the wall. Make sure you always rotate things as well. Make sure you get the best view of it going forwards. I think something like that. There we go. So that's kind of drawing your eye right into that back corner. It makes a feature of the wall by having that. Now what you wouldn't want to do is have dot plants along the edge. So the grasses, let's look at the grasses that I used in the previous border. Now I wouldn't put this in. I wouldn't put that there. Because you want to what am I trying to say? You want to accentuate the shape of the border. And in this case it's a triangle, and it's leading you, it's almost pointing into this back corner. So if you suddenly put down a couple of these against this wall here, you're losing the shape of the border by having those there. Now obviously all gardening is a very personal thing. Everyone likes different things. I'm just describing to you what I like and what I was taught while I was doing my gardening diploma. It's the basics of garden design. So what you might want to do, you might want to have this plant in here, and you could use it as the dot plant at the back here instead of the lobster claw, and that would be absolutely fine. But what I also like to do with something like this is maybe use it slightly differently. You can sink it down. So what you do in a border like this, you want the tall stuff at the back, you want the low stuff at the front, and you want medium height stuff in the middle. So if you've got something like this and you're desperate to have this plant in this border, you could just almost create a new plant out of it, and you could actually have it as a separate plant just in there, in that little gap. Sink it into the ground and create a whole new looking plant out of it. You know it's sunk into the ground, I know it's sunk into the ground, and it's meant to be above the ground, it's meant to be taller than that, but it doesn't matter. If you like the look of it and it works, it's a medium height. I think I might even sink that in a little bit more. Yeah, there we go. You've managed to create a whole new plant out of an existing plant, and there's nothing wrong with that. So what I will also do, I think I would want something in this area just here, and I'd be tempted by one of these. These are lovely, these goldenrod. Let's have a look. Is that going to be too big? Maybe, yeah, I think maybe it needs to be further back like that. Again, just sunk it into the ground and put it in the middle of the border. So if you look from above, that's the back, that's the middle, and then you've got the front here. So along the middle you've got your grass sunk in, and now you've got your goldenrod sunk in there. But again, not symmetrical, so that if this grass had been put there, it would look too symmetrical, which you don't want. So there we go. So that's your goldenrod sunk in there as a medium plant as well. And then I think what I would do to try and balance that, because you've got three sort of dot plants here, is I would then do the rock formation that I did before, some sort of rock feature, and that would be over on this side here, and I would do something, something like that. You could easily do, get a nice rock feature in here as well. Rocks are a big part of gardening. Because they obviously, rocks are such natural elements in a garden, so they can really enhance a flower border. Just having a sort of a monolith of rock standing in a border somewhere. It doesn't need to do anything else. You don't need anything climbing on it, although that is an option. In fact, let's just have a look at that as an option. If you want to get into the real details of a garden, what you can do, if you've got something like this, click on Align to Surface, so you end up with a bit of ivy on your rock, and again you could just sink that in and just manipulate it around a bit and make it look, I just think I might just need to turn it a little bit. There we go. You can just get it right so it looks like you've got your ivy growing up the rock. There we go. A very simple thing, a little bit of ivy growing up the rock. Little details like that can make a lot of difference, especially when you've got rocks and when you've got walls as well. It's very easy here. You could easily just get a nice bit of ivy growing up the back like that. You could get something over here as well if you want to detail the wall, because walls can look very boring. So just putting some basic ivy on like that just keeps it keeps it interesting. And there we go. Look at that. I think that's quite a nice, simple looking border. But again, hopefully you can see the difference between that and this first one that I did, which was very, very overcrowded and had too many different plants in it. Yeah. And then lastly, what I wanted to show you was a border like this, which has no wall in it at all. So there's no backdrop. And these can actually be the most fun to do, because you've got to make sure, obviously this border here is only ever going to be viewed from here. If people are walking past it, this is where they're going to view it from, which is fine. It makes the design easy because you know there's the tall stuff is at the back, and it doesn't matter what's behind it because it's a wall. People, you're not going to be, people aren't trying to look at the wall, are they? Whereas in a border like this where people can walk all the way around it, you need to make sure that you can see everything from all angles. So what you need to do in a border like this is slightly different, or certainly how I would do it, is start in the middle with your dot plant. And in a border like this, I would try and put in something big in the middle. So in the game here, you have something like this, your lipstick palm. Now obviously not all gardens are going to have tropical plants in. But for the sake of this design scenario, let's just say I can grow this plant in my garden. There we go. There, that is your dot plant. That is your centerpiece. In a border like this, a centerpiece is always going to look better than not having a centerpiece. You could just design a flat looking border, and of course if that's what you want, that's absolutely fine. As long as you use the same techniques that I have over here, that's absolutely fine. But I would always want some sort of centerpiece. You could do a statue, because there are statues in the game. You could do a big rock monolith. But in this case, I would try and do something unusual like this, something a little bit tropical. Obviously, you could also have a big shrub, or you could have a tree growing up in the middle. But for this situation, let's go with the lipstick palm. And then, essentially, it's the same techniques around it. So again, let's just bring out a couple of these plants. Let's just get let's get this one out. I really like this plant. It's lovely, and in the right situation it can look fantastic. And I'll show you how to use that one in this situation, because in this border I think it's there's only going to be the one dot plant, which is the one right in the middle. You don't, when you've got something so big like this in the middle, you don't need more height in the border. That's your height. That's your eye catcher. You don't need anything else that's going to be tall. However, this plant is wonderful because it's tall, but it's also quite see-through, so it doesn't block your view of the plants behind it, and that is why I shall use that. Let's just get one more, I think. Maybe, yeah, maybe get this one as well. There we go. So those are our plants. So let's just get on and do a little bit of design work here. So again, just trying to sort of just plonk a few bits around, remembering that you can always move stuff later on. So, nothing is permanent. And when you're designing a border like this, in real life, when I'm doing a border like this, which is a freestanding border, so no walls or anything, you're constantly walking around it and just viewing it from all angles, making sure that you've not accidentally made it symmetrical, or you blocked one plant with another plant, that sort of thing. So yeah, you just you're constantly just looking and just thinking, right, where are the gaps? Should there be gaps there? Do I need more gaps, less gaps? Are the combinations right? You're going to make sure that your plants don't clash with each other. I'm a big fan of having different. Hang on, how do I say this? Having colours that don't classically go together. I'm a big fan of having them go together, sort of thing. You know, so you've got your obvious colours that match. It's all to do with the colour spectrum, isn't it? So you've got things like blue and yellow, which are complete opposites, and so they go together. And then I think you've got red and green go together really well. There are other ones as well I can't really think of, but yes, there are various colours that, because of where they sit in the colour charts, they naturally go well together because they're basically opposites on the colour chart. Now, I'm a big fan of putting any colour with any other colour. I think it can work. It really can. As long as they're the right plant. I'm more case, when I'm designing, I think more about the shape of the plants, the height, the foliage, that sort of thing, rather than the colour of the flowers. I'm a big fan of the look of the leaves, and not so much about the colour of the flowers. But again, that's me. It's a very personal thing. Everyone, all garden designers have their own techniques and their own ways and thought processes of how they try to get their borders looking the best they can. Right, we're nearly there, I think. Just still a few gaps, but I'm hoping to plug them with this other plant. So there we go. Let's leave that as the flowers. So that's what, 4 different types of flower in there. I'm thinking that looks okay. So what I was saying about the dot plants, you wouldn't want more tall plants because you don't want to take away from the centerpiece. So what I would do with something like this is just get these around the outside. Actually, no, I think that's going to be too big. So let's go with the medium one. Just going to get rid of the align to surface because I might just want to sink it a little bit here and there. So this plant, it gives you that height, but it's quite see-through, so it's not going to block the view of anything else. You can see there, you can see straight through it, but at the same time it is giving you a little sense of height, isn't it? Let's just get that in. Let's go for the little one as well. Get a couple of these dotted around. Let's have a look. Yeah, we're looking okay there actually. I might just get one right in the middle next to this. Yeah, there we go. And then I think what I would probably do in here as well is what I did before with the rocks. I feel like there's a few of these gaps here. Maybe if I just recolor that again to the grey rock, so it's a bit more of a generic sort of grey rock colour. I live in England, for anyone that doesn't know, so most of our rocks are grey. So yeah, I would just get a few of these around. Don't have to make them too obvious. Just there, you know, they're just hovering around underneath. Yeah, there we go. And there's still plenty of soil showing again. Remember, you do not need to completely cover up the soil. It's just not necessary. So let's get rid of that. And there we go. That's our border. And again, it's it's a bit I've rushed that a bit, but you can see the effect. So let's just quit out of that. So yeah, so that's a decent looking border. Now what I would probably want on this border is an edge. I would put some sort of edge here. Squares do not work in nature. Straight lines are okay when you've got something like a wall, because it would be obvious that you've got a nice straight edge from side to side here. But even here, depending on what you've got next to it, if you've got a path next to it, you'd still want some sort of edging, I think, along there. But certainly in a border like this, if this was in a lawn, I would probably try and do something with an edge. But that's a personal thing again. You may or may not agree with that. but for now that's the border. And you can see the effect. So from a distance that grabs your eye, and then you come in and you've got different shades, but it's not overwhelming. You haven't got bright yellows and bright reds and things in there. They're all shades of pink. You've got a little bit of blue, a little bit of white, a bit of purple. So colours can be very important as well, but for me it's more about the shapes of the leaves, shapes of the flowers, and the height. Height is the single most important thing in any flower border, is height, and getting it right so you've not got too much tall stuff or too much low stuff. But you can see here, you can look at it from all angles, and it's the bit in the middle that's really capturing your attention. Whereas obviously this border here, if I were to remove these walls, let's do that, and I can show you exactly what would happen if this border here did not have the walls. If you're looking at it from here, the tall plant is blocking your view of all this other stuff, and that would be no good at all. So there we go. Let me just get that wall back actually. Don't want to lose my walls. There we go. So there we go. That's my tutorial on how to design your flower beds in Planet Zoo. So hopefully you've learned a little bit there. Hopefully I've made sense and you sort of understand where I'm coming from as a professional gardener myself. And hopefully that will help you design better flower beds in your zoos. So if you've got any questions or anything, please do let me know down in the comments. If you've liked the video, then please do leave me a like. That would help share the video out with more people who can hopefully learn something from me. And hopefully you can come along and see some of my flower borders in some of my zoo projects that I have going. But until I see you again, do take care of yourselves, and thanks for joining me, and hopefully I will see you soon. Bye for now.